At this time, ladies and gentlemen, we will start into the prosecution's rebuttal. Mr. Allen.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen, the only fantasy in this courtroom is that this defendant, this stepmother who killed Gannon, has psychosis, that she was insane on January 27th of 2020.
Okay,
that is the only fantasy that has been brought out into this courtroom. It's been brought out by this defendant. They want to talk to you about motive. We talked to some of you in jury selection about motive.
Listen, man, these lawyers are great public speakers. Terry Sanderson, his lawyers need to take some pointers from these guys. These lawyers are great public speakers. I don't know why Terry Sanderson's lawyers, so I'm just going back a little bit. Terry Sanderson's lawyers were horrible at public speaking. I was like, you know what? Maybe all lawyers are really bad at public speaking, but then it's like, you gotta be good at it though, you know, to do opening statement, closing statement. You got to start strong. You can't be sitting there reading from your script, reading all boring like. You got to be like passionate like this guy or the other guy.
One thing you didn't hear the judge read in any of those instructions is anything about motive. You know why? It's not an element of a single crime under Colorado code. We don't have to prove motive. And yet we did anyway.
They did.
This defendant.
That's what I was saying.
Gannon. You know that because she searched it.
Mm-hmm.
I hate my stepson. She has one stepson.
I believe.
She hated him. She was planning to leave Al Stauch, move back to the East Coast. She wanted to hurt Al. She wanted to hurt Landon, for that matter. She did, to the core.
Quick question. Landon, is Landon Gannon's biological mom? Is that who Landon is? Because I know there's a Lena, and Lena is the biological sister to Gannon. I just never knew the mom's name. I'm just assuming Landon is the mom's name. I don't know who else it would be.
They will never recover from what she did to them, ever. And you know that. Think about the time frame that we're talking about. This was no snap in time. This was not an instantaneous thing. This occurred over days. She was planning to leave a week prior to Gannon's death when she killed him. Look at the searches that we talked about on Monday when Kevin Clark took the stand. We know when she was looking to leave. We know she hated Gannon. She knows she wanted out of a marriage with Al. We know that she didn't like what Landon was up to because she would manipulate Gannon about Landon.
Okay, biological mom. Okay, just want to make sure. Thanks.
We know these things because of the evidence that we brought you. And in fact, it does prove motive. I want to ask you about why did Al leave Gannon with the defendant on that weekend? He left on January 25th, Saturday. Remember that? Why would he leave and go to Oklahoma for 2 weeks of training if he knew there was a problem with the defendant? From psychosis. Al told you the answer to that question. He would not have gone. If he had seen some problem with the defendant, he said he would not have gone. And he did anyway, because she doesn't have psychosis. He never saw a single sign from her.
She made
what he didn't know, unfortunately, he couldn't see into her heart. He couldn't see the hatred that she had for Gannon, the motive that she had to leave.
Oh, you know, I wonder if anyone's going to do a victim impact statement. That'd be really interesting to listen to.
And to hurt him to the core. He didn't know that it was all about her, even though he lived with her for some number of years. Defense wants you to speculate that the fire set off some sort of a trigger. You read those instructions while the judge was reading them to you. It says speculation. Can't do it. And yet they're inviting you to speculate. Why is that? Why would they invite you to speculate when we're talking about an 11-year-old boy who was brutally murdered? Why would they invite you to speculate? Because they want you to ignore the evidence that was brought into this courtroom. They want you to ignore this evidence and speculate on the other hand. You can't do it. Saying she's freaked out in that phone call. Acting she's freaked out. We all get freaked out sometimes. As Mr. Young said, we're human. Go drive down the highway and you see an accident, you might freak out, you might have some rush of adrenaline, and it kind of messes you up a little bit. That's human. Not psychosis. And further, that freaking out that she's supposedly doing is her acting. It's not psychosis. It's all about Letecia. It's all about this woman who murdered Gannon throughout the whole thing.
Me.
The text to the school.
Sarah Boone.
Leslie Hicks. That morning, January 27th. They want you to speculate again that that's some sort of a trigger. You know what it is. It's an unassailable excuse. You tell your employer that your stepfather, a member of your family, has just died in a tragic car accident. No employer is going to make you come into work that day. She needed an unassailable excuse to not go to work because she knew what was happening later that day. He knew Gannon was done that day. That's why she calls Gannon into school later or out of school later.
Sarah Boone. I haven't heard any updates with Sarah Boone, but I'm assuming she still has the same lawyer. I don't know if she ever got in contact with the lawyer yet, though.
The timelines that we brought to you on
Last
Monday,
I heard, she wrote
internet searches,
a letter to the
tell
judge.
you everything you need to know about her mental condition. She was calculating, manipulating, lying to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because it's about her.
Yep.
Not about Gannon. Deflect the blame and make herself the victim.
That's true. She really wanted to make herself the victim because you know what? She said that like Gannon went missing. Oh, you know what? That doesn't work. You know what? Okay. What happened was Gannon messed up the carpet. So I had to go out and find someone to fix the carpet. You know, I drove around the construction lot, found like a Mexican guy, and I told him to come meet me the next day. And yeah, he came in over to our house, fixed the carpet, but then all of a sudden he had a change of heart and decided to assault me. And then after when he was done, he decided to take Gannon in a suitcase. Like, what? Excuse me? Like, I don't know. She just wanted to play victim so bad. You know, I think that's why she told the employer that like her dad got ran over by a car, right? Because she probably got like, oh my God, I'm so sorry to hear that happen. Oh my God, poor you. Poor you. Pity, 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 you know? Ugh.
Does it ever make sense when somebody kills another person? Can it ever truly make sense? Can it ever truly make sense when a parent kills a child?
True.
The answer to that is no. None of us in this courtroom, except one, has killed a child. That doesn't make it a psychotic act. That doesn't mean somebody's insane. Unfortunately, way too many people kill kids in this country. Why do they do it? Who knows? But it's not psychosis when this one did it. Be very careful when people introduce facts.
Tisha got her head down again.
Wanted to introduce facts to you. Inviting you to speculate. Be very careful about that. He tries to brush away the effect of the hydrocodone that was found in Gannon's system. First of all, Gannon should not have had hydrocodone in his system. Dr. Ignacio told you about that. It's not typically given to 11-year-old little boys. Why not? It's an opioid. It can cause people to get sluggish, lethargic, and lead to coma, and stop you from breathing, and can kill you. All of those things that hydrocodone, an opioid, can do to you, this woman did to Gannon. Why? Because she wanted to kill him. Mr. Cellini brought up the idea that the brutality itself proves psychosis. Is that true? Does the brutality itself prove psychosis from this defendant? The evidence has the answer for you. The defendant's own actions has the answer for you. The brutality of it speaks to the abject hatred she had for Gannon and the pure determination she had to kill Gannon. This didn't start in one snap moment.
Yeah, and she hated the dad. Seems like she hated the biological mom as well. What better way to get back at them? Kill their kid. Did you guys hear about this crazy one? Oh my God. I saw a thumbnail on it. It was like so upsetting. There was this woman hauling a bucket, like on a wagon, I think. It was caught on neighborhood surveillance. And the title was Woman Kills 6-Year-Old Stepdaughter, Leaves the Bucket in Front of the Mom's House. Like I'm guessing like her boyfriend or whatever had an ex-wife that lived nearby. And I don't know, maybe it was similar to Letecia, right? Maybe the woman hated the daughter. Maybe the woman hated her current boyfriend, husband, and then wanted to get back at the ex-wife or something like that. You guys hear about that? It was crazy. It's still really new though, but it happened recently. It's like 6-year-old little girl.
When did this start?
Hey, Morden.
Sunday night. Sunday night with the candle. A candle incident that makes no sense.
Yeah, it was caught
according
on
to the way that she describes it to people.
Surveillance camera.
Because she wants to make it Gannon's fault.
It was so sad.
Does that make sense? Mr. Stauch told you the answer to that question. Harley told you the answer to that question. Gannon didn't play with fire. He would never go downstairs and just light candles randomly. He had a long history of having stomach issues, where he'd get backed up and then have issues with it. And yet this day, he poops himself, and so he's got to go burn a candle to mask the smell, even though he'd never done it any other time in his entire life. Does that make sense? Or does it make more sense that this defendant burnt him?
Yeah, that's what we were thinking too. I was like, Gannon, like, how do you burn yourself by spilling a candle? Okay, this one right here. Oh my God, I'm sorry. There's so many ads, Jesus. Truly inhumane. Family of 6-year-old girl strangled, stuffed in chlorine drum, dumped on mom's lawn by dad's girlfriend. That's so crazy. Imagine being the mom and being like, what the hell is this bucket doing in front of my house? And you open it and then you find your kid in there. Chilling surveillance footage from a night shows a woman nonchalantly dragging a wagon with a plastic bucket on it in the direction of the house. The woman in the clip was wearing tall white boots, red top, and black pants. Landon, who also goes by Bunok Lim or Bunok Landon, has since been arrested on charges of first-degree murder, obstruction of justice, and Bella's death, and is being held without bond. Senseless, heinous act has forever destroyed her family, said the aunt. No words can describe the pain that is running through our bodies. It's truly inhuman. Like, what? Like, what the hell happened? This is the monster right here. Look at her outfit. Got some cowboy boots on. Dragging the bucket. It's so weird. I want to know what's up with that woman. Like if she's had any history. Authorities say Bella's father reported his girlfriend, the youngest daughter, missing around 7:30 a.m., sparking a missing persons investigation. At some point during the search, Harahan police decided to search Jennifer's property less than did the police find it? Where they found the bucket with the body inside. The autopsy later confirmed that Bella, a kindergartner, has been murdered with multiple injuries. Strangulation, blunt force trauma. Jesus. Yeah, so sad. But I don't think they go much into the girlfriend yet. Motive remains unclear. Police records and divorce papers show that Landon and Bella's mother have been in a physical altercation in the past. Landon and Bella's mother. Oh, so there was definitely friction between the girlfriend and the ex-wife. Jesus. Yeah. Super sad. Keep an eye on that one.
That's the start of the attack, ladies and gentlemen.
David.
Sunday night. And it continues with the hydrocodone. A prescription for a full-grown man is given to Gannon. That goes into the morning time. That's why he's lethargic. He can't get out of bed early like he normally would. He's walking slowly to the pickup truck at about 10:15 in the morning when they leave the house. Because he's under the influence of hydrocodone. And then she drives him around, leaving him in the car. He's probably passed out in the car. Doesn't make any sense to leave an 11-year-old boy in a car unless there's something wrong.
That's right, because I think when she went to Petco or whatever, I don't think surveillance camera showed Gannon, right? It was just Letecia by herself, like, buying things.
Something that she did to him. And this picture from Garden of the Gods. These two pictures that she sends Al Stauch that morning of Gannon in bed. Mr. Tellini again is inviting you to speculate as to the reason for those pictures, saying she's just a loving stepmother. What are those pictures? Think about that picture from Garden of the Gods in relation to the pictures that she sends Al Stauch. They're proof of life pictures. They're pictures that she is sending out.
Makes sense.
Prove to the world that she had nothing to do with what she's about to do. Why would she send pictures of Gannon in bed to Al Stauch, except for a proof of life picture? A way to cover her tracks, and it starts early, right?
What I'm curious is that I'm assuming they live in a quiet suburb area. Looks like a nice neighborhood. They have a nice new house. How did no one hear the gunshots? 3 gunshots go off. No one hears it? Or did they just assume it was fireworks or something? I'm surprised that the neighborhood cameras didn't pick that up or something, because that would probably trigger an event, right? Gunshot sounds. loud noises. That way you can try to figure out when
They want you to
exactly
think that this was some sort of a temporary snap. Said it on opening statements when Mr. Cook dramatically walks out of the courtroom, says this is way too worse. We can't handle this. It's a crack in her psychosis. And then we hear it again today from Mr. Tolini. First of all,
Mr. Cook
temporary
and Mr.
insanity
Tolini.
is not what our insanity statute is in the state of Colorado. Look at it. That does not apply here. Second of all, there's not a temporary insanity moment in this case. It starts from Sunday night and goes all the way through Monday evening. I mean, almost 24 hours of horror that Gannon had to suffer at the hands of this defendant. What should have been the safest place in the world for Gannon to be. People who live by stories, by telling tall tales, don't stop. Why would she stop doing that once this case started, if she'd been getting away with it her entire life? Think about the manipulation that she carried out on everybody else in her life. Al told you about the manipulation. Everything this woman did in her life was manipulation to cause chaos, to make her the victim and the focus of everything.
Yeah, possibly, because his bedroom was in the basement. That's where they believe that it happened. His room was in the basement. They believe it happened in his room, on his bed.
Every single
Maybe?
thing. Harley. She didn't know how her own father died. Because she was lied to by this defendant. Why would she stop lying when the biggest thing that she's ever caused in her life is being drilled into by an investigation that is the biggest El Paso County has ever seen? That involves the FBI. That's who she is. She's a storyteller.
She's got too much to gain by lying, okay, and having everyone believe
Telling
her.
fantastic stories is not psychosis. It's who she is. She starts looking up face plant surgery centers. She starts looking up, I need a new social security number. I need a marriage license. I need a replacement passport because El Paso County Sheriff's Office has mine. And she looks up fake polygraph.
Yes, bring up the polygraph.
Why in the world would you need a fake polygraph unless you're covering your tracks? To have some sort of thing that you can anchor a legitimate story to that you didn't have anything to do with.
Oh my God. Dude, I wish they dug up more about Letecia's past. I actually want to know what other batshit crazy things she's ever done before, because she must have done some crazy things at like her employment jobs or something like that. Like, I don't know, like schools or something. She must have told some crazy lies. Like, dude, I wish they brought in more people, but you know, that would just drag the trial on. Dude, I'm just nosy. I just want to know what other crazy shit has she done? Because this is the type of person who I don't think she's a first offender. Not that I'm saying that she's murdered someone before, but there's got to be some more crazy stories about her, man.
With this case.
Hi, taxi.
Who thinks of that stuff except for people like this? I
What
would
are we
venture to
looking
guess
at?
that not a single one of us in this
There's a
room
picture.
ever even knew a fake polygraph website existed
True, we did not.
before now.
We did
I know
not.
I didn't.
No, yeah, we didn't. I had no idea. I was like, wait, fake polygraph is a real thing? Apparently, if you go to fakepolygraph.com, it's like in Europe or something, and they can generate these like fake results for you. Oh, God.
Let's talk a little bit about Dr. Lewis.
True, Jill.
She might be a world-renowned expert. She's the only expert that they could find to bring in here to tell you that this defendant had dissociative identity disorder.
Ooh, we're about to get into Dr. Lewis now. Okay, y'all ready for this? Dr. Lewis, let's go prosecution. He's going to destroy her.
Not a single other doctor that testified here in this courtroom saw a single shred of evidence that she had dissociative identity disorder. Not a single one.
Yep.
And yet this doctor comes in and says she does have it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
This doctor comes in and says she does have it, yet she doesn't even know what the definition of insanity in Colorado is. She starts throwing around words like McNaughton and other things that might apply in other states. And she said sanity could...
Well, she said that like she looked at it and then she looked at the definition, she agreed. But when he or one of the lawyers kept like saying, so what's the definition? What's the definition? She's like, well, how about you read it to me and I'll let you know if that's what I read. And the prosecution's like, no, you tell me what it is. You go ahead, tell me what it is. That's why I thought it was really weird because like, you know, if it was like she was young and she was new to the job, new to the profession, okay, maybe I can forgive. But she's been doing it for like, what do you say, like 60 years? More than 60 years? Like she should have this down to a T. But then again, I didn't realize she was 85 years old. So maybe, you know, maybe the memory is not as great. But dude, it was pretty tough, man. Because this is like your livelihood. This is your career. Like you should have this down.
Depend on where you are, what state you're in, that kind of thing. Don't you think if she's going to come in and tell you as an expert, this defendant is insane, according to Colorado law, should know what Colorado law is, and she couldn't do it. There were a lot of I assumes, I don't knows, deflections, stories about other cases. Anytime she was pressed to justify her opinion, she couldn't do it.
Jesus.
You saw Dr. Torres in contrast to that.
Yes, we did.
She could point to specific things about her evaluation of the defendant.
I saw very little of Dr. Torres's testimony though, like very, very little. I think it was like whatever clip that either Law and Crime or Court TV had.
Compare the two.
But they didn't believe her.
The instructions that you got from the judge are your roadmap for this case. They help you determine what the law is, and you're expected to follow the law, and you apply that law to the facts in the case, to the evidence that's been piling up over the last several weeks. The presumption of innocence absolutely applies in every single criminal case. It applies in this case.
Did you guys listen to the closing argument, though, for prosecution? This is the rebuttal right now, but did you listen to the closing argument? Is it the same as the rebuttal? Is it very similar?
Until you are determined that the charges have been proven beyond a reasonable doubt, she has the presumption of innocence. We have the burden of proof. This system doesn't work if you don't hold us to our burden of proof. We expect you to hold us to our burden of proof. We welcome you to hold us to our burden of proof. Mr. Tellini talked about proving it without a doubt. Proving this case without a doubt.
It was the older attorney. I saw him earlier.
In any jury instruction in the state of Colorado or in the United States. You don't have to prove cases beyond all doubt. You have to prove things beyond a reasonable doubt. Because this is, after all, a human function. Nobody can ever prove anything 100%. Johnny Cochran, after the O.J. Simpson, or in closing for the O.J. Simpson case.
Your Honor, I'm going to have to represent Johnny Cochran and O.J. It's not commenting on evidence.
I'm sorry?
It's not commenting on it. There's no evidence of what Johnny Cochran did at any point in time. So
I'm actually using it to talk about the burden of proof, Judge.
well, then rephrase it.
Well, I was about to. So in that case, Johnny Cochran said, if it doesn't fit, you must acquit. What he's talking about is our burden of proof. And he was absolutely right. If a case is not proven beyond a reasonable doubt, your jobs as jurors, according to these jury instructions, is to find a defendant not guilty. And we expect you to do that. If we didn't prove the case, then hold us accountable and find her not guilty. But if we did prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt, the jury instructions are also very clear on that. If we have proven the case beyond a reasonable doubt, the jury instructions tell you, you should find her guilty. If the crimes fit, you should convict. That's what the jury instructions say.
I watched a licensed psychiatrist who watched the defense doctor, Dr. Lewis, and was just shaking her head. Oh, really? Are they a YouTuber? That would be really interesting to watch. In Dr. Lewis' defense, she had a grown-ass son to look after who goes everywhere with mommy. You know, I thought maybe Dr. Lewis just needed like extra help or something like that. And her son is like willing to like help her navigate around and something like that. I don't know. But yo, man, the son was like, you know, up supposedly in the staircase smoking weed. And then we got reprimanded for it. He was like, you know what? I'll just go to the other staircase. No one's going to catch me. And the judge is like, we're going to catch you. Okay, you go on camera. Can anyone give me a heads up of what happened in court today? So they're done. We were doing closing arguments. So prosecution does a closing argument, defense does closing argument, and then right now we're listening to the prosecution rebuttal. After that, they send the jury, and we're actually in jury. The jury's they're deliberating right now.
And that's the other side of the coin from Johnny Cochran's comment. If the crimes fit this defendant, convict her. That's
what people were saying. Apparently, there were like people that were actually at the courtroom that were tweeting saying that like her son reeked of weed. I don't know. Take it with a grain of salt, I guess. The judge doesn't call out who it is. He just
deliberations are up to you.
He's like he did one of those speeches where it's like, I know who you are, mother effer. I won't say it out loud, but you know who you are. We know who you are. We got you on camera, and stop doing it, okay?
To the deliberation room. You get to control how that deliberation goes. The only requirements are that you all have to be together when deliberations are happening. You have to do it in the jury room. But you can take as long as you want, and you can be as fast as you want to come to a conviction or to a decision. Nobody's ever going to second guess you. If you take 2 weeks or 10 minutes, it's up to you. What we do know, what you should know from the evidence, that there's plenty of evidence to find this defendant guilty based on the evidence, not from what I say or what Mr. Young says, or find her not guilty because Mr. Tellini and Mr. Cook say so. The evidence guides you. Let's talk about that question of sanity. It says, so diseased or defective in mind to be incapable of distinguishing right from wrong. Can this defendant distinguish right from wrong? The evidence and her actions tell you that she can.
I know, right? He's being too nice. Please, please, please. Not 2 weeks. Not 2 weeks. That's too long.
Do all the things she did if she didn't know what she had done was wrong. Or she suffered from a condition of mind caused by mental disease or defect that prevented her from forming a culpable mental state. What is evidence of that culpable mental state? As Mr. Young said, it's in Gannon. It's on Gannon's body. The evidence that Gannon's body provides you, the story that tells about what she did, shows she has the ability and had the ability to form the appropriate culpable mental state. You don't stab an 11-year-old 18 times, 11 of which are on his arms and hands as he's defending himself, unless you intend to kill him.
Oh, God. And when they were asking Dr. Lewis about this, like, okay, so did she know right from wrong? And was she intending on killing him when she stabbed him 18 times? Well, yeah, I can't really agree to that. I mean, she probably thought she was like in danger or something. Yeah. Okay, well, what about when she stopped stabbing him and then she went and got a blunt force item to bash his skull in 4 times? Well, I can't say that she had the intent on killing him, And then he's like, okay, well, what about when she went to grab the gun? Well, it was just like, oh my God, this is so bad. This is so painful to watch. That's what people were saying. People think it was the son.
Dispose of that knife that's never recovered.
We don't know for sure. Just what people on Twitter were saying.
Hit him over the head with such viciousness 4 separate times that it cracks his skull open, unless you intend to kill him. And that blunt force object, also never found.
Mm-hmm.
And then you don't retrieve a handgun, a 9mm handgun, and squeeze that trigger 3 intentional times, hitting Gannon 1 time, unless you intend to kill Gannon. That's exactly what this defendant did. And that's how you know she could form the appropriate culpable mental state. This woman doesn't have a diseased mind. She has no psychosis. Multiple doctors and longtime friends and family members answered the question of psychosis for you. This defendant knew then and knows today the difference between right and wrong. Harley said it. Dakota Lowry said it. Al Stauch said it. Every single person that knew her knew she knew the difference between right and wrong. She was of sound mind, informed the culpable mental states required. You learned about dissociative identity disorder from at least 2 different doctors in this case. Extremely rare. Prevalence in society is roughly 1.4%. But most importantly, it's marked by severe behavioral health symptoms that would be noticeable by others. Other people like Harley Hunt, her daughter who lived with her every day of her life. Al Stauch, who was married to her for 5 years.
The brother.
Dakota Lowry, who was her younger brother. These people would have noticed that she had something wrong with her. The forensic nurse examiner, Amanda Van Ness at the hospital, would have noticed it. This is 2 days after Gannon is murdered. And the defendant fakes that panic attack in the sheriff's office and is taken to the hospital.
Wait, is this when she does the panic attack and then she like tries to run away or something? I think she actually did run away successfully. They take her to the hospital and then she like dips out.
Given the opportunity to be examined for the supposed rape story that she had.
Oh, that's right. 2 days after, this is when she comes up with the new story. She said that she was assaulted and then they're like, okay, well, let's take you to the hospital. Let's get you examined, let's go. And then she gets there. I think she like does a panic attack thing. And I think she like escapes. Isn't it crazy? How the hell did she escape? Who was on duty watching her?
And she splits. Amanda Van Ness told you that she's dealt with people with severe mental health disorders. She's told you what happens when she deals with people like that. Called an M1 hold. It's an emergency situation where you put somebody in care for a period of time because they're a danger to themselves or to others. Amanda Van Ness saw no sign that this defendant was anywhere close to justifying an M1 hold on January 29th. Dr. Niederhauser, on the other side of this equation, about a month before Gannon was killed, the last medical professional to see the defendant before Gannon was killed, also familiar with M1 holds, and saw no signs that would justify holding her against her will because she was a danger danger to herself or others, because she wasn't. She didn't have psychosis. Why blame others? First, it's Gannon's fault, right? He pooped all over himself, started a fire. He's experimenting with drugs. Isn't that convenient that he's experimenting with drugs? He's curious about bath salts. And there's a Swisher Sweet planted in his backpack.
There's a what? Bath salt and Swisher Sweet planted? There's a what now? Wait, what did he say? Do you guys understand?
Drugs. He's curious about bath salts. And there's a Swisher Sweet planted in his backpack.
I have no idea.
And he's got hydrocodone in his system. Isn't that convenient? Isn't that convenient concoction from this defendant? Then she says he...
Oh, Swisher Sweet? It's a cigar? So he was smoking cigars, he was lighting up candles, he was taking hydroxycodone.
Went to a friend's house and didn't come home? Or is it because he loved his mom too much? He was a mama's boy. Is that the source of her hatred for Gannon?
Yeah, I can
He
see
knew
that.
she could never replace the love that Gannon had for Landon. And she concocts Eduardo, some random Mexican guy that works at the housing development. Just gives him access to the house through the garage code. He comes in, fixes the carpet.
Oh my God.
But in addition to fixing the carpet, he rapes her. Bangs her head on the floor. No sign of injury on her. Curiously asks for boxes.
And don't forget. She decides to clean up the scene, okay? The guy comes in, assaults her, steals Gannon, and her first reaction, clean the scene and tell the police, oh, well, Gannon was playing with his friends. I don't know where he went. Does that make sense?
In a suitcase? Why'd she have to introduce the suitcase? Had to explain away why Gannon was going to be found in the suitcase she put him in. A suitcase that Al Stauch recognized when he was shown the picture. A suitcase that Dakota Lowry recognized this defendant struggling with before she drives off to Florida. We had to explain it away. Next, it's Quincy Brown's fault.
The most
You heard Special
guy.
Agent Jonathan Grusing. He talked about he wishes he would have pushed her more on the Quincy Brown and let her expand on that character. Because this is the character she gave the most information about. It's a real guy. Guy that was published in the media. The most wanted people in El Paso County for sex offenses. Perfect fall guy for what this woman did.
Have they caught him yet? Is Quincy Brown still at large?
He replaces Eduardo as the rapist. Knew his name when his ID fell out conveniently and landed on the floor in front of her. Then he turns into a guy up in northern El Paso County selling a bike. Or he's laying in the road as they're driving and gets into the car and forces them to come back home and he rapes her there. Or Gannon's test riding a bike, crashes, hits his head, and then he takes off with Gannon.
Dude.
Uncle Matt.
I forgot about all these little variations of the story.
The least
Oh my
descriptive
God.
person in any story this defendant has probably ever told. Boy, can she tell some stories, can't she?
Listen, okay, the son was probably just stressed out that his mama was doing so bad on the stand, so he had to relieve himself by smoking marijuana in this case. I'm just kidding.
Somehow Gannon knew him and he was involved, but we don't really know how. And then it's the pregnant lady with the cash baby. Was
The
8 months
what?
pregnant, involved with money laundering for Mexican restaurants, gets into the
What?
car, starts pulling money out of her belly.
What?
Somehow she's involved with what happened to Gannon.
Wait, I did hear about that story, actually.
Pointing outward, right? Pointing anyway, except for her. Except that in each one of these stories, the blame for Gannon's disappearance is someone else. And she's
Kind of reminds me of the first episode of Cowboy Bebop. Remember the chick that was pregnant, but then she like had those like the red eye drugs in her belly and she really wasn't pregnant? Oh God, what a strong first episode. It's so good. I think the scar was originally to be used as like why the fire started. He was down there smoking. I didn't hear that story either. Yeah. Dude, I heard about the one where she said that she was driving. Quincy Brown's body was laying in the middle of the road. She got to see what's up. And then he came and like kidnapped him and then drove back to the house or something. I heard about that. I heard about the bike incident that Gannon was riding, hurt his head or something like that. But no, I did not hear about the what was it? The cartel pregnant lady or whatever it was.
The victim in every single one of these stories, figuring out a way to cast blame elsewhere and situate herself as the victim as to what happened. That's a very calculated move. Every single time she does it, she's doing it to explain away why pieces of evidence are found in the case. She knows about the suitcase is going to be found. She notices that we're searching up in northern El Paso, southern Douglas County, where the board is found. So that's when the bike story comes in with Quincy Brown up in that area. She's got to explain away why her GPS is going to show her up in that area. Just up there innocently looking for a bike. But Gannon's blood is going to be found up there. Got to explain it away. Landon's fault. This is the most cruel of all.
The pregnant story was actually a real story from her area. Same with the Quincy story. That's why she used them. Oh, the pregnant one's a real thing. She was pregnant with twins during interrogation. Wait, what? Then the vampires got involved. Yeah, Edward Cullen came into her life and swooped her away. She could have just written fiction novels because of her imagination is wild.
All right. But somehow Landon is responsible for a Gannon because of her ex-husband.
Wait, sorry. Do you guys remember the lady who there's an author who writes like she wrote a book of like how to kill your husband, and then she actually went to trial for killing her husband. Do you guys remember that? What was the outcome of that? Guilty or not guilty? I didn't really follow it. I just heard about it. I just thought it was really like crazily ironic.
Landon's fault. This is the most cruel of all, right? But somehow Landon is responsible for a Gannon because of her ex-husband. That somehow Landon is involved with Gannon ending up in Mexico.
That's right. She tried to blame the biological mom.
Why would she introduce the word Mexico? Because by the time she's saying this, she's already pitched Gannon over that bridge in Florida, thinking it's pitched over into the Escambia River that flows out the bay and into the Gulf of Mexico. It's Al's fault. His fault that Gannon is gone and he should be investigated. Somehow he contaminated the scene.
She blamed the dad?
Another cruel twist of the knife. Going after the people that Gannon loved the most and who loved him the most.
Dude, she wishes she can pin the murder on her husband and his ex-wife because I bet you she hated them so much. Jeez.
Shows you the hatred that she had for these people. The hatred that she had for Gannon and how she's going to use Gannon's horrific demise against the people that loved him the most. Her stepfather, James, supposedly sexually assaulted her as a kid. It's his fault that she's the way she is.
I wonder if she took that out of the Casey Anthony book or something.
Except there's not a shred of evidence from anybody until she starts raising competency that she ever suffered any sort of ill harm by James. She never reports it to a single person for over 20 years. And yet that's the trigger. Does that make sense? There's a caped invader's fault. It's the last one, right? Standing on top of the bed, wearing a cape. Then really.
Damn it, Batman. She said she was pregnant with twins. She blamed Alice like he owed the Mexican mafia money. Made a bad decision.
Realizes it's Gannon, but she shoots him and stabs him and does all these other things to cover up for whatever. Does that make any sense? Or is this just another concoction? Another way to point outwards on blame and show herself as the victim? When she realizes those external sources aren't working, Dr. Dorothy Lewis comes into play. Before she looks at a shred of evidence, in February of 2022,
Dr.
she's already said,
Patrice Berry? Okay,
you need to go with not guilty by reason of insanity. Dissociative identity disorder is the answer.
Oh.
Doesn't know a single.
Sorry. Okay, now we're going back to Dr. Lewis again. Let me remind y'all about Dr. Lewis here. I got some more.
There's a caped invader's fault. It's the last one, right? Standing on top of the bed, wearing a cape. Then realizes it's Gannon, but she shoots him and stabs him and does all these other things to cover up for whatever. Does that make any sense? Or is this just another concoction? Another way to point outwards on blame and show herself as the victim? When she realizes those external sources aren't working, Dr. Dorothy Lewis comes into play. before she looks at a shred of evidence in February of 2022, she's already said, yeah, you need to go with not guilty by reason of insanity. Dissociative identity disorder is the answer. Doesn't know a single thing about this case or this defendant in February of 2022.
Is that true?
And so what does this defendant do but start creating names? There's Taylor, Harmony, Christina, Jasmine, the Frisky Princess.
Jasmine, the Frisky Princess? You know how a person's Jasmine in Latin? Oh my God. Letecia said the pregnant belly lady sent her in to do money laundering. She didn't want to do it, but she would end the existence of an innocent boy. Hey, Madame August Butterfly, how are you doing today? Why do people put weed in cigars? Isn't it difficult to put weed in there? I don't know. Maybe like the taste of it or something. It's like sweet, right? Or something on the outside.
Letecia and Maria Sanchez. Spanish-speaking Russian sniper. Knows how to kill, kill, kill. One thing.
Oh, a Spanish-speaking Russian sniper? Oh my God. I remember you guys were talking about like Spanish accent and then like Russian accent, but it's a Spanish-speaking Russian sniper. What movie is that from? Can someone tell me? The Frisky Princess. I want that nickname now.
We do know from this evidence, this defendant knows how to kill. Knows how to kill a defenseless little boy in his bed. There's better words to describe this defendant and what she did. Unreliable. Every person that she's ever...
Man, I hope she has a very, 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 very uncomfortable prison sentence. I wish her all the UTIs back to back, back to back, back to back, back to back upon her with no access. We'll fine. Give her access to antibiotics, but because she's had UTIs so often, now that she's antibiotic resistant, the antibiotics don't work for her and she's going to have to suffer with UTI.
interacted with in her life.
Give her the UTI.
Tell you that she's unreliable, that she tells tall tales. She hated Gannon.
Back pain.
You know that because of the injuries that Gannon suffered. You know that she hated Landon and Al. Why take away their little boy the way she did and concoct the story she did unless she hated them just as much as she hated Gannon? She planned this. A week before Gannon goes missing, she's already looking at renting a U-Haul and places to live in Florida. Sometime prior to Gannon's death, she searches, I hate my stepson. Premeditated this thing.
Spushin.
You know that from the proof of life photos. Those two pictures that she sends to Al on the morning of January 27th. She's setting up her excuse. Portraying Gannon as experimenting with drugs when she knows that she's drugging him with hydrocodone. She burned him Sunday night when this all starts. Gannon didn't play with fire. Not going to intentionally burn himself. In that first story about the candle incident, she talks about taking the kids outside and then having to go back downstairs to get Gannon. They all pile in the truck and drive off.
Wait, what? Okay, I didn't hear about that part. I heard that like Gannon spilled the candle. There was a fire somehow. I don't know. I'm about to experiment really quick. Let me light up a candle and let me just flip it over to see if it actually will like sort of fire. I feel like the wax just spills out. But a fire? Fire? And then also all I heard was that like she put like a blanket on top of it and the house got really smoky or something. I'm like, would it really get smoky from that? You think she was trying to like, I don't know, was she trying to burn the house out or something? There's a candle accident she talks about taking the kids outside. I didn't hear about this part. Okay.
In that first story about the candle incident, she talks about taking the kids outside and then having to go back downstairs to get Gannon. They all pile in the truck and drive off.
I didn't hear that.
That never happened.
Oh, okay.
This was just a story that she had to explain away because the fire didn't work. Gannon didn't die from the fire.
So they think that she was possibly trying to kill him with fire?
Then poisoned him with the hydrocodone. That didn't work.
Oh, I wonder if she tried to light Gannon's like blanket on fire. Because she did say that she threw the blanket on the fire, and maybe she'll explain how the blanket like was burnt. Right? The wax just spills out. Does anyone do this on YouTube? Video of someone spilling candle. Let me see. What happens if you spill candle? Where does the candle wax go? No. Yeah, I feel like it just...
This is how to remove a candle.
Yeah.
This is how to remove a candle wax spill from.
Okay, it's not lit, but I feel like if it was, it would just be like, this would be lit, right? And then when you spill the candle, well, sometimes the wax will go over these little stickies and then like the fire would just go out. It would just be like this.
Carpet.
That's not even a big deal.
What you'll need to do this is a
How would it, oh wait, how do you clean a candle wax from a
clothing
carpet?
iron and some brown paper bags. Cut the paper bags into strips about as wide as the wax spot. Place the end of the paper strip over top of the wax, cover it with the iron on a low heat setting, then slowly
Wait, no, this is too time consuming. I don't like this.
pull the paper strip out from under the iron. Keep repeating this step with new strips of paper until the paper strips are no longer absorbing any wax.
What? This is too time consuming. Is there a faster way to do this?
To expose any iron once again.
I don't know if I would. Oh my God. I would probably burn the carpet by doing this. I'm not doing that. Delete the searches when done, Corgi. Dude, I've searched a lot of weird stuff because of like trial stuff, okay? I forgot what we searched recently that was like, it looks really bad, but I can explain, okay? I'm doing research for trial stuff. I'm just curious to know how it works. I forgot what I searched recently. But you guys were there. You guys were my live witnesses. You guys are all co-conspirators.
Remember, Gannon was a
Replace the carpet.
1 pound, 6 ounce little boy when he was born. Overcame all the odds. But he couldn't overcome this one. But he sure did try, didn't he? She attacked him, stabbing him 18 times. Like I said, most of those are on his arms and hands because he's fighting back.
Oh my God, sounds so painful.
Beat him over the head 4 times with some blunt object that's never found, cracking his skull like an eggshell.
Wait a second. Didn't they say that they never recovered the Nintendo Switch? Or didn't they say they couldn't find the Nintendo Switch? Do you think she beat his head with a Nintendo Switch? I mean, Nintendo Switch is pretty, it's made out of crap, man. I don't know if you guys ever touched a Nintendo Switch before. It's pretty crappy. It's like a plastic piece of crap thing. I feel like it would just fall apart, but if I remember correctly, I thought they didn't find the Nintendo Switch. Because I feel like if she beat Gannon with something, the dad would be like, hey, we're missing something in this house. The baseball bat, I don't know, something heavy, maybe some weights or something like that. You think she pawned it? I don't know. Now I'm starting to think maybe she beat him with a Nintendo Switch. Can Nintendo Switch crack a kid's skull, though? Okay, we're not searching that, but yikes. Never recovered the firearm. I heard that the blunt force object wasn't recovered and the knife. I wasn't sure about the firearm. Someone said that it was like the family firearm and maybe they recovered it, but I have no idea.
Shot him in the jaw, severing his spine, and likely killing him instantaneously. She then manipulated the heck out of this investigation with her stories. Her stories and manipulations of this investigation caused it to be the biggest investigation in El Paso County history. I heard that from several different investigators involved in this case.
Oh, she could have beat him with the gun. I guess it has a bit of half. I guess like the screen portion, right? Definitely not the controllers because the controllers are crap.
And it stretched from Colorado Springs all the way to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. She hid Gannon's broken, dead body in a suitcase in that storage room. She ran from cops when the circle was tightening. Remember that trip to Marshall's? When the cops are going there to get cell phones and get the car that belonged to Harley? And they encounter her out in the parking lot. She takes off running. As soon as she sees those guys, she takes off running, throws the keys across the parking lot, starts yelling at Harley, don't say anything. Why? If she didn't know she had done something wrong, why? Then fled to Florida and then eventually South Carolina. Get as far away from this thing as she possibly could. That's why she's wanting to get a replacement passport so she can escape the country. She dumped Gannon's body over the bridge.
The Switch was never found.
Mr. Young talked about this.
Well, like when you sell things to GameStop, they like take your ID and stuff. So, I wonder if the cops did go to GameStop to see if Letecia ever sold anything to them.
Think about how divine intervention plays a part
Joe.
here. Macon Ponder had been at that bridge a month and a half before then. Gannon's body doesn't get found for at least 2 years, if ever. She murdered Gannon. January 27, 2020. She murdered Gannon. This little boy deserves so much more out of this defendant. He deserved protection. He deserved to live.
Does anyone know if Gannon's family or father has been in the courtroom? I feel like I wouldn't be able to sit in the courtroom, man. I don't know. That's so tough. That's so tough, especially seeing Letecia like sitting there with her head down, acting like she doesn't care. Oh my God. Professor Plum. Who was Professor Plum? Who were the characters in Clue again? There was one like hot, like, Scarlet, right? Miss Scarlet. And then there was one that was a maid. I think she was really hot too. It's like using rolling paper, just a thicker, plus you can get the flavors. Did I see the interview with Al right after he was granted a divorce? They mentioned the guns. No, I didn't watch that. Both parents have been there the whole time, I think. Oh my God, it's gonna be so tough.
He deserved to grow up and become a young man and someday have a family of his own. She took it all away.
Well, just the case in the Indian died, Colorado Springs. Please say that one more time. Make sure I have this here correctly.
Sorry, they're playing speakers in the courtroom. Whenever they do that, the audio just doesn't pick it up. It's really, really bad.
Katie, how can I help you?
It's just basically, I'm assuming it's an
Hi, yes. I called 911, and they said I had
911 maybe?
to call this number because I let you know if I was supposed to come on the street.
Maybe a 911. I think it's a 911 call. I think we heard bits and pieces before.
Is unable to do so or engages in this conduct, him or her.
Yep, that's about it. That's about it. They're on jury watch right now. You know what? The closing argument is 1 hour long. I kind of want to watch it, you know? Let's see what he says. Maybe he'll say some things that this guy doesn't say. I'll probably hop around a little bit. So he's the one that does the closing argument. Today, when I started my stream, I started with the defense closing argument, and then I listened to the rebuttal. Let's go watch the closing argument. Oh, also, someone mentioned there's an interview that Al did. Is there a link to that by any chance? Find it. Al Stauch interview. Oh, it's just a family.
How do I describe my G-Man, my Gannon? Gannon's my hero. I love him so much. He's not only my hero, he has multiple people that call him his hero as well. He has so many family members that just look up to him at such a small age. He's full of life. He's happy. He's energetic. He loves sports. He loves Sonic. He loves going outside, playing with his friends, his sister, his neighbor, especially Braden. This neighborhood basically gives you a true example of who my son is. Everybody coming together, all the smiles that people have. This is why I have.
Oh my God. Wait, how long ago was this? February 5th, 2020. So this is when they haven't found the body yet. But I'm sure they probably think Letecia did at this point, right?
Have hope because I feel it. This is Gannon truly speaking to our community. Gannon he loves blue, he loves Sonic, he's into coding, he loves riding his bicycle with his sister, and I know that he's missing that right now. He holds his job as being Big Bubba very important, and for him not to be able to talk to his sisters has to be hurting him. This week has been awful. It's been more than a roller coaster ride. It's been more than emotional mess. I don't even have answers for my feelings other than I'm afraid. I'm afraid that I'll never hear his voice, that I'll never hear him run and say, "Mommy," that I'll never hear those corny jokes that he always tells every single day. He has to tell me a joke. He looks forward to telling me something silly. And I'm afraid that I may never see that again or hear it. I don't want to believe that because that means that I'm giving up hope, and I'm not giving up hope because my son is full of hope. So I'm urging anyone that has any leads, credible leads, if you're too afraid because you know something, a kid just doesn't disappear and no one sees him. It's not how this works.
Man, I wonder if she ever got to confront Letecia or talk to Letecia. Like, where's my kid? What happened?
So if you have anything that's credible, if you're afraid, don't worry about it. Imagine my son, how afraid he is. Imagine how afraid Gannon is. So please call, please write. If you need to have someone else to do it for you, please do.
Oh, that's so sad. The interview that you guys were talking about, it was after he was granted the divorce. This one? Which interview is it? This one?
Our top story tonight. It's been exactly after
Heard from his held on to something more.
Obviously, we know what the worst news is, but the best news is that justice will be served. And I'll make sure that justice is served because my boy did not deserve any of this that has happened to him.
The answer no one wanted to hear.
It's hard to imagine a day, so.
Damned. And while words can't sum up his son,
Love is one. I mean, he just was full of love.
there are words he wishes he could say to Gannon one more time.
It would be the same thing that I told him every day, you know? I love you. Don't get off the bus without your sister. That's what I would say to him, the same thing, because that's what I miss.
Something no
Let this overtake us, but we're still here and still going.
with his memories frozen in frames.
As we look around, we got pictures on the wall and stuff, and you know, sometimes it's hard to see those.
And as time ticks on, he finds strength in his
Making sure she's able to make it through this.
I love you.
Me too.
love, a force that lasts long after tragedy.
I don't really want to focus on what we've been through, but just our gratitude and appreciation. I can't express enough the thanks for what.
Jeez, that's crazy. It's been like 3 years. 3 years. And the trial, of course, just opens a whole can of worms all over again for the family. That's so tough. I like what the judge says at the end. Was it at the end of the rebuttal?
And apply the facts of this case to the law that you now have been given.
All right, so he's going to just do a little bit of intro. I'm going to speed it up a little bit to...
She fires that handgun 3 times.
Right around here.
I don't know how those bullets stayed in the pillow. We can rack our brain for ages. I don't know how those bullets stayed in that pillow. I don't know that we'll ever know how those bullets stayed in that pillow. What matters is the bullet that went into Gannon. The bullet matched the gun really she used that was still in the house. She attributed to Quincy Brown using, or Eduardo using, or whatever story of the day it was. Judgment, reflection, location of gunshot wound. Let's talk about make and ponder a little bit. Because as he drives to Florida, she checks in at about 12:22 in the morning, just after midnight.
Thanks, Mama Bear.
Pensacola, Florida. Why do they drive all the way from Decatur in one night to get to Florida? Why did she want to get rid of Gannon's body in Florida? Gulf of Mexico. You drive this bridge at night, as Macon Ponder testified to, there's no lights on it. We know that sometime between, well, probably between 4 in the morning and 5 in the morning, she's out there. Look at the location where the body was found with the red arrow on People's Exhibit 63. More importantly, look at the space that she has to park this vehicle. I don't know where the pointer is, but you
Right
see,
behind you. It's right there on the window.
Okay, thanks. You can see the shoulder here, and there's plenty of room. Why does she park there? Because she can. 4 in the morning, there's no traffic out there. Does she think there's water underneath the bridge? Is that illogical thinking as you're crossing the bridge and you can't see anything? You cross a main waterway, the Escambia River, and you continue going until you find a place to stop. She probably had to wait that there was no traffic. It's towards the body. Did you ever think the body was going to be found again? Go to the next slide. You see the suitcase underneath the bridge. And as Macon Ponder testified, it was where he and his coworker found it. It was clearly someone who dropped it directly over the bridge. There was an imprint that you remember seeing pictures of, and they ended up dragging it under the bridge, not knowing what the contents were. More importantly, not smelling anything. Why is that important? Probably didn't smell anything. Body had been out here since February 4th. This is now March 17th in Florida heat.
Ooh.
They didn't smell anything until the suitcase was open.
Mm.
That lends some credibility to Harley when she says she never smelled or never knew the suitcase was back in the back of the van. Anyway, they dump it out and they see that probably the most horrific thing anybody can ever see in their life: scan his body in a fetal position, decomposed, wearing the same clothes that he was wearing January 7th, 2020. She killed him. Pants in a white stripe. Watch the video when they leave. See him wearing sweatpants with a white stripe. Talk about that more later. Let's talk about the law, okay? And as I go through the law, I'm going to later kind of go through the timeline of events, and I would like you to think about the mental states and sanity as I talk about those. So I want to talk about the law first. The first instruction I have up here is the elements of the crime of murder in the first degree after deliberation. You will see that most of these elements are not in dispute. That the defendant, not in dispute. In the state of Colorado, at or about the date and place charged, not in dispute. After deliberation and with intent, those are highlighted because those are the culpable mental states that are attached to that crime. Those are the culpable mental states in the insanity definition that we're talking about. So I want to highlight those in a second. To cause the death of a person other than herself, cause the death of a person.
Wait, I just found a handwritten complaint from Letecia Stauch complaining about some of the conditions in jail and some other stuff. Oh my God, hold on. We have to read this.
Yeah, those are not in dispute either. Number 7 is the issue in the case. That's the insanity defense. We're going to talk about in a minute. We can go to the next elements. After deliberation, not only intentionally, but also that the decision to commit the act has been made after the exercise of reflection and judgment concerning the act. An act committed after deliberation is never one which has been committed in a hasty or impulsive manner. Now, some of you...
Yeah, something about kosher food. Hold on, I'm going to go a little bit.
But let's talk about what knowingly is, because that's the culpable mental state with this crime. Person acts knowingly or willfully with respect to conduct or to circumstance described by statute. This part is what's critical. It says,
he's just going over the thing really quick.
An abnormal mental condition. Also, Dr. Torres said, you, no, it's not a severe mental disease. It's not something that affects her everyday life, that affects her ability to make decisions.
Yes, taxi.
No evidence of psychosis during that evaluation either. No history of inpatient treatment during that evaluation. Psychological testing. MMPI-2. Remember that test? What does that test tell you and told Dr. Torres and Dr. Gray?
Still makes me question Harley. Dead bodies stink horribly. There's no way the EC blocked the smell. Well, he just said that the workers, they didn't smell anything when they pulled up the suitcase, right? It was until they opened it up, and that's when you could smell the decomposing body.
She exaggerates.
I don't know. Maybe the suitcase is just really air sealed tight. I don't know. Unless it's is it a cloth suitcase? If it's like a hard case, I could see it. But cloth suitcase, yeah, I don't know. It probably would smell, but
psychiatric to the point where even people who are hospitalized for their mental illness don't answer questions that way. You think she might be faking it?
Yeah.
Now we go to the second competency evaluation with Dr. Grimmett. Now, remember how Dr. Grimmett became involved in this case? The defense at the time, and it wasn't these defense attorneys, requested that she do the evaluation of the second competency evaluation. We had nothing to do with that. So now this happens on December 22nd, 2020. That's when Dr. Grimmett talks to her. And so I want you to think about how it's progressed now. Now she starts talking about dissociative identity disorder and bipolar disorder. When I say she, the defendant. That's what the defendant is telling Dr. Grimmett. She says she has 4 distinct personalities.
Hey, doctor, I know you're here to diagnose you, but don't worry, I got you. I did your job for you. I diagnosed myself. I have DID. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Like, oh my God, Letecia, you're so smart, Letecia. Wow.
None of those 4
so
were Maria
smart.
Sanchez.
You didn't even go to medical
Dr. Grimmett
school.
testified to that she was, first of all, creating these names. Second of all, like Jasmine was a Disney character.
Jasmine, the frisky princess.
Talked about vampires. Twilight.
Yo.
I've seen the movie Twilight. I know I hate admitting that, but I've seen it. And she cited the characters from that movie. And Dr. Grimmett said, wait a minute here. You're just telling me characters from a movie? That's not dissociative identity disorder. But she evaluated her for it because that's what she's telling. Dr. Grimmett evaluated her for DID. Said, no, not there. I don't even need more information. I don't need to rule it out. Not there.
That's so
She also
funny.
diagnosed the defendant with other specified personality disorder with borderline and narcissistic features.
Oh, borderline with narcissistic features. Okay, that's what it was.
She also told you that it doesn't fit that definition.
Oh my
Jump
God,
forward to February
no.
of 2022. I don't know when the conversation took place, but at some point before the defendant pled not guilty by reason of insanity on February 11th, 2022, they had a conversation, the counsel had a conversation with Dr. Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, Dr. Lewis testified that I recommended you change your plea to not guilty by reason of insanity.
Mm.
Why is that important? Why did I ask her about that? I think that put a little pressure on her.
Wait, Dr. Lewis was the one that said it, not the lawyers? Textbook narcissist. She got diabetes. What was the brand of the briefcase that all the drug traffickers used back in the 80s? They were airtight. The drugs couldn't smell them. She has a doctorate from the internet.
She says, I recommend you plead not guilty by reason of insanity, and I'll do the evaluation. Why didn't she do the evaluation right away? Why'd she wait till November? Come out and talk to the defendant.
Wait, that is kind of weird. So she told the lawyers to do not guilty by reason of insanity, but wouldn't you have to do an evaluation before you come up with that conclusion? It's like, nah, plead this, and then I'll do the evaluation later. I don't know. That's what he's making it sound like, unless he's horribly misrepresenting what happened.
Needless to say,
when
she pled not guilty by reason of insanity in February. The same process happened as happened when she raised competency. Sent down to the state hospital. The state hospital chooses who's going to do the evaluation. They make a decision on who already knows the case. Dr. Torres and Dr. Gray already read all the discovery in this case. They knew the facts of the case. They knew the defendant, but they're doing a different evaluation. As you remember, competency goes to her state of mind at the time they're doing the evaluation. What's her understanding, what's happening in the courtroom, whether or not she can get along with her attorneys, that kind of thing. Insanity is completely different. Insanity, you got to go back, just like the law says, at the time of the crime, what was her mental state? So that's a much broader evaluation. You got to look at everything.
Yeah.
So Dr. Torres and Dr. Gray, they also reach out again, call out. They attempt to talk to Harley, family members, to see what's going on with her. But what is the defendant saying now? Gone off of bipolar now. And now she's created more personalities as part of this dissociative identity disorder.
Yo, so she tried to pitch that she had bipolar, and then she's like, no, just kidding, never mind. I have DID. Yep, that works better. Yep, let's do it.
Is it just a coincidence that she's consulted with Dr. Lewis prior to all this? Now Maria Sanchez comes into play during this evaluation.
Did Ramoa exist back in the day?
Dr. Torres testified, and it's in a report, that she said, there is no credible evidence to conclude she has a condition that conforms to the definition of a mental disease or defect. Pretty powerful language. That's powerful language. No credible evidence. What's also interesting about this evaluation compared to Dr. Lewis's evaluation is they do 2 interviews, if you remember. One was in March, one was in June. The March interview, I think, I couldn't count how many questions, but it wasn't a lot of questions asked. It was the defendant talking. They just let her go. In June, they asked more questions. One of the questions that Dr. Torres asked is, can we talk to Maria? Can we talk to Maria Sanchez? She said, no, Maria just doesn't come out. There's got to be some kind of stressor, or there's got to be a triggering event, which coincidentally is exactly what the DSM-5 says. I can't just summon Maria. You saw on Wednesday how that happened. It was magic, according to Dr. Lewis.
Okay, you guys are going to get me in trouble with my search history. Airtight doesn't always mean smell tight. Unfortunately for drug smugglers, airtight doesn't mean smell proof. Some airtight materials, such as plastic, contain microscopic pores that leak smell to a dog's nose. These microscopic holes are as large as the holes in a fishing net. But what about suitcases? I don't know. This just talks about like vacuum seal bags, airtight containers, drugs, marijuana. It seems like the dog can still smell it. What are these 70 suitcases that we're talking about? Okay.
No severe abnormal mental conditions that grossly and demonstrably impair a person's perception of understanding of reality. No psychosis. No bipolar. Because remember the first competency evaluation, they said they had to rule it out. They've ruled it out. Bipolar does not exist with this defendant based on Dr. Torres and Dr. Gray. They also said no dissociative identity disorder. Didn't have to rule that out. They had enough to say there's no credible evidence. That's not there. They continued on with the diagnosis of other specified personality disorder with borderline and narcissistic features. Dr. Torres and Dr. Gray came to the conclusion that the defendant was not legally insane at the time of the crime. Let's go to the next slide, which is the credibility instruction. This instruction applies to experts as well. You may believe all the testimony of the witness, part of it, or none of it. This instruction applies to every witness who testifies, including Dr. Lewis. I got highlighted certain words there. Motive. Didn't see motive in the elements of first-degree murder, but you see it here. Money is a strong motivator.
You guys
Having
are
shows
gonna
on
be in trouble.
HBO, strong motivator. Having your son videotape evaluations on a first-degree murder case that's gotten quite a bit of publicity for perhaps another documentary is motive. You're gonna do a documentary if she says, she's saying, sorry, did what I could. Acting. Not as good as, well, not as bad as Robert De Niro, I guess she would say, but she's acting. You also have to look at her demeanor and manner while testing. She wouldn't answer any of my questions. She wouldn't answer my questions because she didn't want you to know the answers. She wanted you to know what she wanted to say. She shows up to court late. Talk about narcissistic tendencies. Manner while testifying. I think that speaks for itself, how she testified.
Today, all I know is they're given a lunch. They don't have to leave. But to what time? I don't know. The judge might have mentioned it towards the end. I didn't get to that part. The DEA is out there.
Especially when you compare Dr. Torres. Obviously she would disagree with my questions. Remember how many times she says it depends?
I'm on the good list, okay? I have TSA pre-check.
To me, she's not our expert. She just happens to be the expert.
I'm
that
a
the state
good
hospital chose
citizen.
to come in to do a neutral evaluation. The truth. Dr. Lewis. She didn't know the legal definition of insanity in the state of Colorado, ladies and gentlemen. The whole reason she came in to testify.
Okay, so he kind of just the person who does the rebuttal just basically reiterates what he says.
I'm not even sure what her opinion is anymore, based on your questions. Remember how she answered it? About the MRI and the EEG that she withdrew?
Uh-huh.
My opinion is ongoing. What does that mean? Does that tell you that her opinion that she was legally insane at the time counts for anything? Because when you think about her report, she does this preliminary report, which was supposed to be an insanity report, 35 days before trial.
Yeah.
That says, hey, I need more information. I need an EEG and an MRI done if I'm going to make a decision on insanity.
Okay.
Well, that doesn't happen.
Okay.
MRIs, take someone to the hospital for 2 hours, you do an MRI, you come back. Never happened. But yet, a few days before trial, she hands over a report saying, I find her legally insane, and that's literally all she says. I don't know what standard of insanity she's using, but I do know that she didn't get the information that she needed. But you know what information she had? She had a third MMPI-2 test that Dr. Torres told you about, that a Dr. Leach took, that was hired by the defense to do psychological testing based on what Dr. Lewis requested. Guess what the results of that showed? It was the same, exaggerating psychiatric symptoms to the point where people who are hospitalized for mental illnesses would not answer those questions that way. That didn't seem to matter.
Rip, Dr. Lewis,
I want to talk about
man.
the facts of the case, and the reason why I want to do that is because I think it's important for you to look at the defendant's actions.
Okay, so I think it's the person that does the rebuttal does a really good job and basically summarizes everything. Can we just read this really quick? Does anyone here have bad handwriting? If you have bad handwriting, I'm sorry. I'm going to make fun of people who have bad handwriting. Or childlike handwriting. Oh, let's see. Letecia.